disappearance in a small Texas town leaves investigators puzzled.
He wouldn't have just ran off. Too honorable for something like that. He wouldn't have made a choice like that just to run.
But when a horrific discovery washes ashore on a nearby lake, the peace of this tight-knit community is shaken to its core.
He finds a hidden torso in the bag. It wasn't a rough cut like you would see with an animal attack or an accidental dismemberment. This was a straight, clean cut all the way through.
As the investigation begins, the victim's past suggests a sinister motive.
There was some guys that he owed money to that were possibly involved in the Mexican mafia.
When the pieces fall into place, a grisly crime will take shape.
He had been shot in the head twice with a .22 caliber weapon.
To dismember a person would require some anger.
This is some serious shit.
Investigators are left fighting for justice until the very end.
There was a lot of evidence, but it was all circumstantial.
So much of the case has loose ends, and juries don't like loose ends.
The charming town of Ennis, Texas, is the picture of Southern hospitality.
Ennis is one of those towns where the kid winning the 4-H contest can make the front page of the paper. I used to drive with one hand on the wheel because I would always be waving to people.
But on February 18th, 2008, a dark cloud hovers over peaceful Ennis when 41-year-old Gloria Aiken calls 911 to report the disappearance of her partner of 10 years, George Frazier.
Gloria reported him missing. The last time she had seen him was the night before, which was February 17th of 2008. And then she just didn't see him again and had a bad feeling.
She called the hospitals, checked everywhere, and he was nowhere to be found.
Dispatch quickly sends an officer to George and Gloria's home to file an official report.
She said he left to go see a friend and never came back.
According to Gloria, George has never not returned home, especially on a day he's supposed to watch the couple's teenage daughter.
Gloria called me. No, I haven't heard from him. And then she said he didn't come home. And then she was like, she's starting to worry. He would never leave his daughters because he was the role of taking care of the kids.
We want to look at everything, and we start looking at potential people that could have had something to do with him being missing.
George Frazier was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1965. Joyous and charismatic, George quickly grew into the family comedian.
He was the big guy, but he was more like a humble type person, like, hello, how you doing? Never seen him mad, never seen him angry. George was just like a basic everyday guy.
Despite George's sunny outlook, Brooklyn in the 1960s wasn't an easy place to grow up.
This was just an awful, crazy time in Brooklyn. The crack just hit the streets. Everybody was getting strung out on this crack.
George learned some street hustle. He knew how to navigate the back alleys of Brooklyn in order to survive.
I did get that impression he didn't have to work. I think he might have some criminal activity that gained him his money. And he liked his money. He just didn't like spending it.
George's life was forever changed when he laid eyes on single mother of two, 31-year-old Gloria Aiken.
She's a single mom, similar upbringing, probably a challenging childhood, much like George's.
She did grow up poor, sharing clothes with her family. She has 3 brothers and 2 sisters. They were not close.
At the age of 18, Gloria had her first child, a little girl named Erica. But being a teen parent wasn't easy for Gloria or Erica's father.
My uncle's a little bit older than her. They had the baby and they got an apartment and they were staying with each other and started to fight. And she got rid of him.
7 years later, in 1992, Gloria gave birth to a second daughter and worked around the clock to provide a stable life for her children.
She did hair on the side. She always had a job and always had a hustle going on. And she was quite inspirational to me as a kid. The fact that she was able to create opportunities for herself.
Though her daughters always came first, Gloria still found ways to treat herself.
She was glamorous to me, and she was about her money, so to speak. Her clothes were very, very nice. Fur coats and big jewelry.
Young men, including 32-year-old George Fraser.
Gloria and George, I'm not sure how they met, but they met after my uncle and Gloria separated. They're both passionate people, and they both very opinionated, and they don't back down. They both had the same drive to get money. They were good together. They complimented each other to me.
In 1998, the couple started dating, and George took on Gloria's daughters as his own.
They called him Dad, and they seemed to have a pretty good relationship.
I really loved George. He accepted me like a niece right off the bat. Gloria worked at the post office while the girls were growing up, and George kind of stayed with the girls while she worked.
After 7 years of dating, Gloria and George decided to leave crime-ridden Brooklyn.
He and Gloria moved from New York down to Texas, and they just wanted to get away and come to a completely new place and start over.
While the family headed south, Gloria's oldest daughter took a different route and joined the military.
George was proud of her being in the military. He would always say that he was proud of her.
In 2005, the couple moved with their 12-year-old daughter to the small town of Ennis.
George had family around, he was closer to his family, and that's the reason they moved here.
This little old town in Ennis, there's not a whole lot of entertainment. It's a lot more slowed down here than versus in New York.
George immediately embraced the slowed-down southern lifestyle of his new hometown.
I met George on the job in this regional medical center. He was a temporary. We enjoy what we do. We hang pictures and we fix things that are broke for people. He said he liked Ennis because it was quiet. He really enjoyed the peace, he said.
He was just working temporary jobs here and there, so she seemed to be more of the breadwinner in the family, and he was more responsible for taking care of the daily duties. She had the more stable job, the more long-term job, working at the prison.
Off duty from her job at Hutchins State Jail, Gloria wanted even more for herself and continued her New York hustle mentality.
She was working 2 jobs, if I'm not mistaken, and then she was also going to school.
She was enrolled in school in a community college around here, trying to better herself and move up the ladder. She was studying like anatomy, physiology, things leading either to a healthcare or medical.
Years old, was enrolled in high school, and the family was thriving in Texas.
George wanted to be happy somewhere with Gloria, and that was it.
But when George reported missing on February 18th, 2008, Gloria tells police she is alarmed that her always reliable partner has vanished without a trace.
I don't think he took off. For George, not to come home or not to be there was not like George.
He wouldn't have just ran off. Too honorable for something like that. He wouldn't have made a choice like that just to run without family.
So now him being gone became a bigger issue, and so more suspicion about where he was and why he left became more important.
After responding officers take Gloria's statement, a missing persons investigation is opened with Detective Dorinda Clark at the helm.
Detective Clark started calling area jails, hospitals, places like that to, make sure the person's not injured, unable to communicate or whatever. That's just normal procedure.
When her calls come up empty, Detective Clark heads to the home of George's partner Gloria for more information.
Normally, your closest family member or the last person to see someone alive is usually your first point of the investigation as your starting point.
Sitting across from Gloria, it's clear she is deeply concerned.
His wallet was still left there at the house. If you're going to go missing on purpose, you're going to take your wallet and things that you need, whether it's credit cards, your ID, things that you need to live.
We asked her for the phone information, the provider information and numbers. We were going to try to use the phone to track him, basically, is what we're going to try to do.
They were just trying to gather some evidence or information that could lead them as to where he could have gone.
But Gloria says the phone is also a dead end.
Gloria said that his phone wasn't working.
George's phone had been turned off shortly after his disappearance. Well, if you want to find somebody, you gotta have the phone on.
He didn't take a vehicle with him, so we didn't have a vehicle to look for. We couldn't track a phone. There's all sorts of things going on that we would normally do that we weren't able to do.
A week passes with few leads for the missing persons case.
Even after 7 days of just hitting it hard, they have nothing. This was a frustrating investigation for the Ennis Police Department. They need to find George.
Coming up, a darker picture of George's past comes into focus.
I think George had bad dealings in the past.
But he's some money, and he was going to meet this person and take care of that.
February 19th, 2008. It's been 24 hours since George Frazier was reported missing, and there is no sign of the beloved father.
Ennis is a rural community. Was he somebody who had gone missing, who wandered into the woods or went out by the lake for some reason, fell in, drowned, maybe animals had gotten to him? There was always that possibility of that happening.
After days of searching, on February 25th, detectives circle back to his partner of 10 years, Gloria Aiken.
She says that there's been no activity on his credit cards.
When detectives ask if Gloria has any theories as to where George might be, she says she and her family are beginning to fear George's past may have caught up with him.
He was a force in the areas we grew up in. So, he was a respected man on the streets. Based of the lifestyle that George led in the past, it would seem that it would have been something from his past that came back to haunt him.
George was very private. I think George had bad dealings in the past. He just seemed like he come from a really fast background. Maybe something to do with drugs. He knew quite a bit about sales, amounts, types, kind.
Although the family had seemingly made a fresh start in Texas, Gloria says there's one bit of information she had been afraid to tell police.
She tells detectives that he took off that night because he owed somebody some money and he was going to meet this person and take care of that.
Gloria told the investigators that possibly he had owed some people money, specifically a Hispanic man who might have been in the Mexican mafia, and so that's why she believes something bad might have happened to him. The Mexican mafia and various gangs are all over Texas. It's very rare to have that in our county, but we've had a few cases where gang-related activity ends up coming into our county.
The potential lead sparks investigators' interest. But during the interview, they notice an unsettling detail in the language Gloria is using around George's disappearance.
She kept saying he was this, he did that.
That's definitely would cause for concern and kind of throw up a red flag in your investigation when you've got your reporting party already referring to your victim in the past tense.
Still, Gloria remains entirely cooperative and even consents to a search of her home.
They look through the couple's cars, they look through the couple's home. There is no obvious sign of foul play.
But as investigators make their way to the couple's bedroom, they notice something odd.
The house was clean. It was very organized. It was just a nice place. You go upstairs, and there's this big walk-in closet full of trash bags. What's in there? All George's clothes. She said she couldn't stand to look at them. That's what she told us.
I can imagine where somebody would be so upset seeing this reminder that they would put the clothes in trash bags. So it wasn't a automatic red flag. It just seemed odd.
Investigators decide to dig deeper into Gloria and George's home life by going to Ennis High School and sitting down with the couple's 15-year-old daughter.
I wanted to talk with you. I'm trying to find out what happened with your dad.
Her response to them was, "I'm a kid, why are you asking me these things?" She never was real emotional about him being missing, didn't seem to be super upset. She figured he's probably just going to come home later. She said the last time she had seen George was at their home, upstairs. She heard him get a phone call.
We just heard it this morning when he picked it up.
Okay, but you heard him talk on the phone with somebody.
He said on the phone, I heard him on the phone.
Okay.
Just like I was already on the sleep.
She remembers him leaving because the house has an alarm system that would let her know when somebody was leaving, and that's about it.
She never saw him after that.
Next, detectives ask if her parents ever had any problems in their relationship.
She described her parents' relationship as being pretty happy. She said they didn't really fight all that much.
The teen's description of a peaceful home draws the spotlight off Gloria.
It was, by all appearances, a happy home. That's all she could give the police about George disappearing.
Desperate for answers, on February 26th, over a week since George's disappearance, investigators begin questioning his friends, hoping for a lead.
They're talking to a friend of George who says that he hasn't talked to George since Christmas, but he does remember George
Being kind of a crook.
Detectives must determine if this is the man Gloria believes George owes money to.
Any lead's worth checking out. I'm not going to discount any lead till we follow up on it. And it just seemed like a good place to go.
On February 29th, 2008, 12 days since George's disappearance, detectives sit down with Daniel Hinojosa.
Daniel and George used to work at the hospital together. Daniel and George were friends.
Daniel says that he had no information about George, hadn't talked to him in a long time.
Daniel had no knowledge of what happened to George. He was concerned about George also.
Daniel provides an alibi, which quickly checks out. And when detectives dig into Daniel's past, they find no ties to the Mexican mafia.
He did not appear to be involved in any kind of offense at all.
With their best lead dried up, investigators find themselves at a stalemate yet again.
Investigators are considering all possibilities. They want to put different storylines to rest. Was this a missing person? They had to find answers.
March 1st, 2008. As the investigation into the disappearance of George Frazier grinds to a halt, a new mystery unravels 3 miles away in nearby Bardwell Lake.
A couple that was on the lake, just enjoying themselves, come around a curve and see a human leg.
They had been walking along the way, found this leg partially wrapped up in a plastic bag, and then called the authorities right away when they found it.
Normally, when you get a call that someone thinks they found human remains, more often than not, it turns out to be an animal bone. So I was a little shocked to find out when we got there that it was a human leg.
There's no distinguishing marks, but it's a leg of an African American.
The wound itself appeared to have been cut with some sort of saw or a bladed instrument. It wasn't a rough cut like you would see with an animal attack or an accidental dismemberment, something like that. This was a straight, clean cut all the way through.
Coming up, a possible crime scene is uncovered.
In most of the places, there were very small, like droplets of blood.
And as investigators dig more into George and Gloria's relationship, a stunning secret comes to light.
He admitted they had an affair.
On March 1st, 2008, investigators with the Ellis County Sheriff's Office are processing the scene where a human leg has just been recovered on the edge of Lake Bardwell.
We felt we needed to search the area looking for the rest of the victim's body or more parts. We didn't find any blood at the scene. We didn't find any other physical evidence. Everything appeared to be that the location at the lake was strictly a dump site.
With a likely homicide on their hands, detectives immediately send the severed limb to the coroner for analysis and search the missing persons database.
As they're looking through all of these missing persons cases, they land on George Frazier, missing since February 18th.
We learned that the Ennis Police Department, which was near our location, actually did have an open missing person case for George Frazier. Since both of the cases were in this close proximity, the description matched, we had a pretty good suspicion that this leg was probably that of Mr. Frazier.
We were able to get from his sister and some DNA items, additionally from Gloria, they got a toothbrush, and so they were able to compare the DNA, and it was George's leg.
Detectives head to the home George shared with his partner Gloria to deliver the tragic news.
When the investigators went to tell Gloria that George was deceased, she was not overly emotional in terms of crying and things like that. So that caught the investigators off guard when that happened. So now we're going to hit Gloria Aiken much harder than before.
On March 3rd, Gloria agrees to sit down with investigators for a polygraph examination.
I believe the question of the polygraph were, did you have any knowledge of George's disappearance? Were you involved in any way in George's disappearance? There weren't but 2 or 3 questions.
She continues to maintain her innocence. She continues to maintain she knows nothing about George's disappearance.
Though Gloria is adamant of her innocence, the test suggests otherwise.
She failed. I knew she was lying.
The part that Gloria failed was the question asking about whether she participated in George's being missing or in his dismemberment. So that was very important to investigators at the time.
She clams up.
Detectives press Gloria by showing her a photo of the leg found on the shore of Lake Bardwell.
That's when she started tearing up. She knew whose leg it was. She knew exactly whose leg it was. She stood up and said, I gotta go. And I said, it's your last chance to talk to us. And she said, I gotta go, and left. The next day we got a call from an attorney that was representing her and said that he did not want us talking to his client.
Since Gloria's no longer talking, since she's lawyered up, they're gonna have to play tough.
We had the polygraph examinations, but those aren't admissible in Texas. They thought there would have been evidence found at the home.
So they get a search warrant to search this house and the cars again.
On March 11th, 2008, detectives arrive at Gloria's home for a more comprehensive search.
This time they also went in with crime scene technicians from the DPS crime lab.
We took a computer. There was a 9mm pistol we seized. They found blood in a Jeep. They found blood in a bathroom. Dorinda Clark found a large amount of blood on a chair and an ottoman and the wall in the living room. And it appeared somebody tried to clean it up at some point, and they didn't do a very good job.
They find a baseball bat that has bloodstains and pieces of hair on it.
That kind of made us think that this is our primary crime scene.
Despite the evidence, some details of the crime aren't adding up with the supposed crime scene.
In most of the places, there were very small like droplets of blood. I think the theory was he was killed in the home, taken to some other location for dismemberment, and then his body parts, thrown out in different locations.
Convinced that George was killed in his home, detectives do a neighborhood canvass.
What emerges from this is that George was really well thought of by the neighbors, but Gloria not so much.
We were all pretty good friends. She would get on to him all the time. Just anything he did.
It seemed like every time I went to the house to pick him up, there was something, fighting about something, we would leave. And then he would make the comment, she's all about money.
Neighbors say that money wasn't the couple's only problem.
George thought she was having an affair.
With this new information, investigators must consider if Gloria's alleged lover had anything to do with the crime.
I don't know if he's got any knowledge about any potential homicide, or if he was involved in the disappearance or the dismemberment of George Fraser.
If he does know something and didn't give information, he could potentially be charged with some criminal activity himself, or if he participated.
12th, 2008, detectives subpoena Gloria's phone records, hoping to uncover the name of her alleged lover.
When they got her phone records, they could tell who was calling and what time they were calling. They saw that there was one particular number that she called very often. That person ended up being Mr. Odetola, a person who also worked with her at the prison.
Phone records pointed to him as being the most called person.
On March 21st, investigators head to Hutchins State Jail to interview the man on the call log, Olutunbosun Oditala.
He admitted he'd been dating her since like August of 07. She had told him that she wasn't married, that she was living with two old aunts that were rich and would cut her off if they knew that she was seeing anybody.
They saw each other regularly. He would rent a hotel room in Corsicana, which is about 30 minutes down the road.
When detectives break the news that Gloria did in fact have a partner of 10 years, Olutunbosun appears genuinely shocked.
He says that he had no idea who George was, didn't even know that Gloria was in a relationship with anyone. He confesses that he had been in the home, but had no idea that George even existed.
Olutunbosun says that within the past 3 weeks, Gloria had asked him to move in with her.
She's going to invite another guy to move in with her. After George had been reported missing, she was fairly confident George wasn't coming back.
Coming up, more gruesome evidence is recovered from the depths of another Texas lake.
Arms had been removed and the body had been cut just below the chest.
And detectives set a trap for their prime suspect.
We asked him, you gonna be a witness or a suspect?
He said, I have to. Coming to the mother. We need to listen to each other out.
April 2008, 6 weeks after the disappearance of George Fraser, Ennis police are speaking with Olutunbosun Oditala, the lover of George's partner, Gloria Aiken.
They were looking at Gloria, so now they're also trying to figure out what is the motive, right? Can we prove that Gloria had a motive to kill George? Why would she want him dead? Once this evidence of an affair was discovered, he then became a person of interest in that did he help her do this?
With nothing to hold Olutunbosun, Gloria's potential motive, starting with the couple's finances.
She was trying to pay all the bills. He wasn't really contributing a whole lot at that point.
But detectives soon uncover one way Gloria could get money from George.
There's that $250,000 life insurance policy for George.
This $250,000 life insurance policy became a real legitimate motive for why she would want him, dead. She could gain a hefty life insurance policy to live the life that she wanted to lead.
While investigators continue looking into a possible financial motive, another clue washes ashore on a nearby lake on April 5th, 2008, 5 weeks after the discovery of George's leg.
There was a person around Richland Chambers Lake that was doing some sort of landscaping or yard work.
He thought it was, somebody cleaned some fish and threw the guts in the bag. Felt that, it's flies and stuff around it. He goes in to look at it and finds a hidden torso in the bag.
The Freestone County Sheriff's Department quickly responds to the scene.
There was quite a bit of decomposition. The arms had been removed and the body had been cut just below the chest.
It happens to be an African-American male. They believe between 25 and 50.
Everybody's just kind of assuming the torso and the head probably belongs to George.
The body parts are immediately sent to the crime lab for analysis.
We looked at the photos and it was pretty obvious in the crime scene photo that's who it was. But just to confirm, we went ahead and did the dental records, and it was George Frazier.
On April 6th, the autopsy report lands on the desk of Ennis Police Detective Dorinda Clark.
He had been shot twice in the head. It was a .22 caliber pistol.
Detective Clark also receives the DNA results from the blood found inside Gloria and George's home.
DNA confirmed that all of the blood that was found on the ottoman, the couch, the TV, the baseball bat, the wall, and the master bathroom all belonged to George.
Dorinda, she wanted to lock Gloria up. She knew Gloria was guilty. We all did.
She used to always say, we're going to get her. She wasn't going to let it rest. She was determined not to let it rest.
But just as the pieces are coming together, Detective Clark gets a devastating setback.
They were looking for a small caliber gun, like a .22. I believe she had a 9mm in her house, so it did not match.
The weapon we seized from the house was not the weapon that shot her.
Determined to connect Gloria to the crime, Detective Clark turns to the one person who may have been more involved than they're letting on.
I had a doubt that she was the one that did the cutting, I thought that was a little extreme for a spouse to dismember a human body.
It would have been really tough for Gloria to do this all on her own. And now they're wanting to know, did the boyfriend have something to do with this?
On April 24th, 2008, detectives ask Gloria's boyfriend, Olutunbosun Oditala, to come in for a polygraph exam.
He passed the part of the polygraph that asked about participation in the offense. In the dismemberment or the homicide, he failed the part about the knowledge of the offense. He just denied he had any knowledge of it. He just was not really cooperative at first until we asked him, you want to be a witness or a suspect? He chose witness. He would do anything he could do to clear his name at that point.
On April 25th, Olutunbosun agrees to wear a wire during a conversation with Gloria.
Ah, no. Do you know that the cops, I was with them, anybody, I was with them for like 8 hours. Man, everything, they know everything on them. So what? Check it out. Gloria, you told me you don't have any man living with you. So they said you live together.
The boyfriend's putting a lot of pressure on her. He's accusing her.
They said they're going to arrest me. For what? I don't know. I don't have any money, nothing. So you need to help me. I will get the lawyer. Are they trying to arrest you? Yeah, they said they're going to arrest me. So they said I committed the murder.
The conversation with him and Gloria, it got pretty heated.
They said I asked you. I didn't do anything.
Suddenly she becomes very combative, and that's when their voices get raised.
This is some serious shit, right? So you need to listen and chill out, okay? Just listen. Man, they know everything. Everything like what? What do they know? Everything.
And it gets so heated that the management from Jack in the Box called the Hutchins police. Hey, there's a disturbance out here. This man and this woman are arguing.
You okay? Can we help you? behind the back. No, man, I'm fighting. I just talking.
The officer's presence puts an end to the argument and any chance of Gloria incriminating herself on the wire. Without a confession from Gloria, the case quickly loses momentum.
I would have wanted a confession because it was all circumstantial. We took what we had to the DA office. The chief felony prosecutor reviewed it, felt like it was enough to arrest, but not enough to prosecute.
So much of the case has loose ends, and juries don't like loose ends. Everything needs to be tightened up.
There weren't any post-polygraph admissions that were made by either Mr. Odutola or Gloria that we could use. I don't think anybody realistically believed that Mr. Odutola did any of this. We still had to prove that she intentionally and knowingly, caused his death.
And so it kind of just dropped off at that point. It became a cold case.
Though investigators try to build a case, 5 years pass with no developments. Then, the investigation hits another roadblock when lead detective Dorinda Clark is diagnosed with leukemia in March of 2013.
That does have an effect on the case because as a lead investigator, you've got a lot of things in your head that may not necessarily be written down somewhere.
Ennis is a small police department. She had institutional knowledge in her brain.
As Dorinda endures grueling rounds of chemotherapy, Gloria moves on with her life.
Gloria cashed in that $250,000 life insurance policy. Another setback for the cops is Gloria decides to remake her life in South Carolina. So now she's 1,000 miles away.
Coming up, will Gloria get away with murder?
There's a lot of witnesses and testimony that was lost forever.
It's not required for us to prove motive in Texas, but everybody always wants to know.
By 2013, the murder case against Gloria Aiken has been on hold for 5 years after facing several hurdles.
Unfortunately, time is not a friend of this investigation because during those years when the case was dormant, several key family members die.
While the investigation has setbacks, lead detective Dorinda Clark receives promising news following her leukemia diagnosis.
She went into remission and came back to work.
She is doggedly determined. She needs answers. She wants to get Gloria.
Dorinda came back to work and man, she got fired up. We had a new prosecutor at the time, new chief felony prosecutor. We put a PowerPoint program together and sat down with her, showed her the PowerPoint. Like I say, it's mostly circumstantial case. The new prosecutor, he said, hey, let's indict her.
In April 2014, the Ellis County District Attorney's Office presents the evidence to a grand jury. Prosecutors argue that Gloria was tired of supporting George.
I think Gloria got a little greedy, wanted money, and she's found another way to get her hands on money. Life insurance.
She had a $250,000 insurance policy on him. The insurance policy would be a big motivator.
Prosecutors argue that on February 17, 2008, George had settled into his favorite chair for the evening.
All signs point to George is either asleep or watching TV. That Gloria takes a baseball bat, hits him over the head. Just based on what they found, a baseball bat with blood stains and pieces of hair, he clearly was beat up.
I think to disable him, to knock him out, and finish him off with the pistol. I think she hauled him in that Jeep, so that blood got in there. Cut him up with a better operated saw of some type. Put him in bags and took him to the lake.
I always thought that there might have been another party involved and been an accomplice accomplice, but we just didn't have the evidence.
All of the facts and circumstances were brought out to the grand jury, and they ultimately decided to indict her for a murder. After the arrest warrant comes out, she's found in South Carolina. She was ultimately arrested and then waived extradition back to Texas to stand charges here.
We had her transported back to Ellis County. We tried to interview at the Ellis County jail. She didn't want to talk to us, and she started crying.
In 2016, while Gloria awaits trial, the case is dealt a final blow when Dorinda's cancer returns.
She had ups and downs. We thought she was going to make it. She was doing great, and then she crashed.
Dorinda dies at the age of 54.
Dorinda got sick again, and when she got sick, again, and died. You lost your lead investigator at that point.
Essentially what we had was a crime scene being in this house. That's where Gloria lived. It's not required for us to prove motive in Texas. We, really realized that we were not going to be able to do this trial because of Dorinda Clark not being available. We decided we needed to plea this out and get the best option we could in the end.
On May 19th, 2017, prosecutors offer Gloria a plea deal, reducing her murder charge to manslaughter.
She pled guilty, it took 12 years. I was pretty upset about it. 12 years wasn't enough. You shoot a guy, cut him up, put him in 2 different lakes. I believe it's worth more than 12 years.
She took his life, and all the people he's gonna touch, and all the people he has touched. And she got 12 years. That's not justice. That's a crime in itself.
Gloria isn't a bad person. Not even at all. She's not to me. And I just can't imagine how she could do these things that she's accused of and that she pled guilty to.
It was just a waste to take a man's life like that in such a manner. It's just horrible. It's horrible. And the world's not a better place. It's a lesser place without George in it.